Hello, I'm talking with Pallas today, Pallas Hupe Cotter, and she's the most wonderful person. She's a TEDx speaker and award-winning broadcaster, and I'd love to get her to tell you a little bit about herself and what she's doing hanging out in this wonderful country we live in called New Zealand. So,
Well, thank you, Cathy. I'm having fun hanging out in New Zealand, I'll tell you that. And I'm feeling many layers of gratitude that I'm here in New Zealand, really, with what we've gone through as a collective community across the world. I feel very grateful to be one of this team of my 5 million here. But I've been here since 2011, and I moved over because my husband got a job here, but I was looking for a fresh start. So I was a newscaster in the States. I spent 20 years in the news business. It changed quite a lot. I was ready to do something different. I was ready to do something that I felt had a more immediate and positive impact on the world around me. And I had that opportunity when we moved here. So I reinvented, I pivoted a bit, and I used some of the skills that I had built in the news business and repurposed them to help people get clear about their personal brand, help them position themselves for success or pivot in a new direction. And these are things that are coming in very handy right now, I have to say.
And so you're a living example of what you're talking about, and that's fantastic. And so it's going to be great to get your wisdom on that today, as so many other people are looking for what ignites their fire, what helps them to pop, if you like, to use your words of making your life pop. So just as we're starting, I'd love to know what you think are the current challenges in the education system.
Well, it's a big question, isn't it? I'll preface this by saying that I'm the mother of 2 boys who are in university now. So I have weathered the entire gamut of, primary school years to getting through NCEA, and they were both here for high school doing NCEA. I found that with my 2 boys, I love them. I think they're special. They're amazing. They were not top of the class students. So I found the biggest challenge was that they floated around in the middle a little bit. So schools and teachers are under a lot of stress, and they always need more resources. So you tend to find that the people sort of at the bottom and at the top tend to get quite a lot of the attention. And in the middle, that's where they can get lost, because it is, in fact, up to the children and the parents a little bit to find ways to connect, to get them to engage. So my challenge was getting them to engage with what they were learning.
Okay, you're just freezing a little bit there, Pallas. We're hearing what you're saying, but the picture is freezing. So just letting you know that you were freezing there. So the next question that I've got for you then is, and what do you wish you'd learnt at school?
What do I wish I'd learned at school? I wish that I had learned it was okay to fail. I wish that I had learned that trying something new because you were interested in it should be the driving factor for studying something. I learned it eventually because I did that at university. If I'd done what I was particularly good at, it would have been English. But I decided in university to study politics, philosophy, and economics, big, chunky subjects that I didn't think I was ever going to study once I left university. So I didn't care about the grades. I cared about the experience, the learning experience. But it was something I decided after spending all this time in school, and with, of course, the way that we need to standardize tests and figure out where people's strengths and weaknesses are. And the way we do that is by testing kids. Grades do serve a purpose, but they also they deflect people away from taking chances, taking risks, and learning for learning's sake.
And that's so much of what we're needing to do at the moment, isn't it? Is be able to take those risks and learn more about ourselves and see where that's going to take us without necessarily knowing the answers.
Yeah. Precisely. It's a scary thing to do. And it's scary because the world sort of rewards winners. I'm actually, has just recently interviewed someone who wrote a book. She was a silver medalist in the Olympics, but she was a silver medalist. And she immediately asked herself, does that mean I won or not? Now, to me, that's so telling. And I think the way we've created our academic system, and with 2 and 3 hour prize givings at the end of the year, rewarding the same students for the standards that they've achieved, isn't necessarily reflective of someone's ability to succeed or their strengths.
it's funny that you talked about that, Pallas, because I was talking the other day with somebody who has represented New Zealand at an international competition, right? And they did really, really well. And we were talking about what's something that you're proud of. And this person said, actually nothing. They're not proud of anything. And
So powerful.
Then we heard that they've represented New Zealand at this international competition, right? And I mean, how many other people do we know have represented our countries at international competitions? And it was not something that they had ever thought of being something to be proud of.
We undervalue our effort, and I know that is sort of the difference between a fixed and changed mindset, that this idea of grit is someone who's willing to go in and try it again and again. And we encourage it with these words, but in some of our institutions, in some of the way we design competitions or grade people, then we actually depress the incentive or impulse to jump in and dive in and feel good about what we've achieved, even if it isn't an A or a gold medal or a gold star or whatever.
Yes. And that's part of that, isn't it? It's about identifying our strengths and our passions so that we can bring more of them to the fore. And that leads us very nicely into our first question, Pallas, which is, how have you been able to build on your strengths and live a life aligned to your passion and purpose?
Well, my strength has always been communication. In the beginning, it was writing as a kid, or reading and writing, I should say, and absorbing words and then using big vocabulary words and then writing. And one day at probably age 11, I got up and spoke in front of a large group, and it came naturally. And I was a very shy child, so that was odd. So communication one to many is the strength, if you want to be specific about it. And then that, of course, morphed into what I did for a career, which was the news. And now I do public speaking, but I also do mentoring and I write. I'm doing a master's of creative writing. And so that's my passion project, because I still want to improve upon my early rudimentary fairy stories and turn it into, something far more literary and epic. So that's my journey. But so I'm indulging in my passions through doing the learning, and I am building on my strengths in terms of communication, and helping people boil down their messages so that they can position themselves for success. So I get them to, through a little bit of mentoring and prompting, see what their strengths are, what their value is. But then the key is, how do I get them to articulate that in a way that's authentic and comfortable for them, and also strategic and impactful. And I love doing that.
And that's the purpose part of that, isn't it? It's having identified your skills, if you like, your strengths, having identified that passion, and now wanting to bring that out in other people, which has become your purpose.
Yes, mission, purpose, whatever word you want to give it. I like purpose, but it is because I feel that one of life's greatest tragedies is kind of what you described, this wonderful person who represented New Zealand and then who just dismisses it. And, the tall poppy culture can sometimes contribute to that. So I do feel that it's important that we teach one another that it's okay and that it is important to be able to recognize what you're good at, own what you're good at, and then be able to articulate that in a way that says, look, this is what I happen to be good at, and this is how I can help serve my community, or what I can contribute to my community.
Exactly. And you've frozen again there, Pallas, but again, we caught everything that you've talked about there. So it's just the picture that froze near the end there. So we've been talking about building on your strengths and living a life of passion and purpose, right? So how hard is that for other people to do?
It is hard for other people to do, because we are challenged when it comes to recognizing what we're best at doing, because we do it so well. It costs us so little effort. We can't see it, can't see the nose on our face. Secondly, culturally, we're not, at least in New Zealand, where there's tall poppy syndrome, it is challenging to be able to say, I'm actually good at this, without feeling as if that's coming across in a braggy way. So I tell the people that I work with, or people I speak to, I say, look, view it as just recognizing something that you were lucky enough to be born with, a talent, a gift that you were given. And this is what you do best. You happen to be, born being able to do this. And this is how I can serve or contribute to my community. Turn it in with that open hand, turn it into something that's not about self-aggrandizement, but how you can contribute to the world around you. And that makes it a lot easier. Or simply say, if you're something that you're good at is also what you're passionate about, put it that way. I am passionate about communicating, writing, broadcasting, whatever. And the reason I am is because, I can connect with people and impact their lives and give them information that can change their lives. And so that's why I do what I do. And I do it in these ways and at this level or standard. And that's a way that takes the sting out of, well, I am a public speaker or a broadcaster and aren't I important? Because that's not how it's meant usually, but sometimes it can be how it's perceived, and that stops people therefore from owning what they're good at.
And that's exactly what I overheard yesterday, actually, was somebody talking about things that they were good at and being told, be humble. You need to be humble. Yeah. And this is some of the stuff that gets in the way, some of those obstacles that are there. So not only is it hard for people to see what they're good at, but then they're being told, be humble.
And I'm American. I can hear my own accent. I know that. I'm not someone who was ever comfortable with owning my own strengths, though. And so, I understand the challenge and I understand the cultural context. But if it's about, look, this is how I help others, then that changes the quality of it. And you can say it in a way that shows that you have the talent, but it is about, not, it isn't sounding not humble. It's not sounding overconfident or braggy.
Absolutely. And I love that way of putting it around, because then it is just, this is how I can help you, is because this is something that I'm good at. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So this year it's been a challenge. And so how has that changed what you do?
Well, you mean professionally?
Yeah. Well, how has COVID-19, if you like, changed?
How has it changed?
Yeah.
I think it's changed. I think
it could be personally. How has it changed?
Yeah. Well, when we first locked down, my first impulse was not to hibernate, but to reach out and connect. And I think we've all realized the power of connection is so important. And again, another one of my values, and I do align what I do with my values, is to contribute. And I wanted to contribute skills, techniques, thoughts, anything to help support others in this really stressful time. So what I did was I got online more often, and I did more things like this, interviews, and interviewed other people. And then I created an ebook to help people see, an hour or less, because it's a short book, what they could do, how they could identify their passions, their values, and their talents, and figure out how to align those and tap into those to make their lives pop. So I found a way that my message could help in an instance like this, in a pandemic. So that's what I've done. But I've also really looked inside and said, okay, how do I want to spend my time and energy? And that's where this writing, this master's degree really has come in. So I do feel that I've indulged in a passion project, and I encourage everyone out there, if they are lucky enough to be able to and not looking for a job, to be able to just do something that you love to do. Because if we've learned nothing, we've learned this, that time is short. And my motto is, life is short, make it pop, make it extraordinary. That sort of fits for this year. So do what you love to do, even if you don't get a paycheck for it. And if you do need a job, be willing and be daring to say, what am I best at? What aligns with what I'm passionate about, and what matches my values? And just say it out loud. And that's the first step to actually finding something that matches that. Yeah, don't keep it hidden inside.
Absolutely. And you're showing that example as well, not only connecting with people, but going, actually, I want to learn more about this, and going out seeking how we can learn more about it. And I think that that's something that has also happened this year, is that so many more things are available for us to be able to learn with others, and inspire each other with. So
what you're doing is a perfect example. And you probably wouldn't have done it without the pandemic hitting. I mean, it's crazy, but that's the way, that's the silver lining of something that's been very sad and very challenging.
Okay, so here's another question for you, Pallas, and that's, what's the cost of not taking this opportunity to look at who we are and what we want?
Well, I have to tell you that when I was in the States working as a news anchor, at the end of my career, I felt entirely stuck. I felt entirely as if my outside life didn't match who I was on the inside. And I feel that if we don't use an opportunity like this to just at least press pause and take a look at what aligns, what doesn't, what's feeling out of sorts, what's making you feel stuck. If we don't take that opportunity, we might condemn ourselves to remaining stuck. And again, how sad is that when life is short, and could be far shorter than we anticipated. So, Yeah, I just feel that that's an important thing to think about right now. And I think any which way you do it, even if it's just stopping to talk with a friend and say, look, I'm feeling this way, but I'm afraid, because that's what usually stops us, is fear. And have a friend reflect back to you. But you're great at this. Why not? Why wouldn't you? Look at the worst case scenario. Usually it's far less frightening than we make it sound, or we build it up to be by the stories we tell ourselves. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, having the opportunity, I see a lot of people who feel stuck, just like you've described. They've been in this job for X number of years or whatever, and it's almost like they don't see another option. And so
and there's always a third way, isn't there?
Yes.
There's always a third way.
Yes.
So the danger is if you don't take the step, or you don't start articulating, well, this is ideally what I would want, even if it sounds crazy, then you'll stay stuck, and you won't find that third way. I was talking to a friend today, and I said, way back when, in 2010, when I was still doing the news, someone challenged me. You're unhappy. Well, why don't you change this? Well, I can't change that. The news business isn't flexible, blah, blah, blah. But she got me thinking. And then I said, you know what? I'm just going to sit down and write what I want. And I just wrote out the life that I wanted. Sure enough, within a decade, and it took less than that, I created it.
Yeah,
that's the first step.
Yeah. And I've heard that exact same story from so many different people, that idea of capturing what we actually want on paper. And for you, it was writing. For other people, it's pictures. For other people, it's just bullet points and thoughts and clouds. But the number of people that I've talked to, and myself as one of them as well, by just getting something down on paper, and you look at it 5 to 10 years down the line, and you're going, oh my goodness, look what's happened, and it can be in terms of relationships, it can be in terms of where you're living, it can be in terms of the fulfillment that you're feeling, the joy that you're having in life. And there's still hard times, and there's a heck of a lot of hard times that can go on the way through that, but boy, it's amazing to look back on, isn't it? So
it feels like magic. And people often say it's kind of, oh yeah, that's so woo-woo, but it's not. Our brains detect patterns, and so once we articulate it and make it clear with a dream board, or with writing it down, or just telling a friend, then we've put it out there. So the brain is switched on. Okay, look for these opportunities. By articulating, other people then know that you're interested. Maybe they would never guess that you would be, like, people would never have guessed that I would want to lead the news. I didn't go around telling everyone how unhappy I was at the time, but it no longer matched my values. So I needed to make a change. So just by articulating that, then others know and say, this opportunity might be good for you. So it's not magic. Maybe there's an energy quality component about it, but there's also some very strong logic behind it. And so why not try? Why not do that? What's the worst that can happen?
Absolutely. And it's almost like it gives yourself permission to be able to dream of other possibilities, isn't it? And releases something there. Yeah. So last question that I've got for you then, Pallas, is what does personal leadership mean to you?
Personal leadership means that we take responsibility. We talked in the beginning about schools and about kids and about education. And I do think that a lot of times we are looking elsewhere at others, at authority figures or systems or governments, and saying, what can you do for me because I'm having a problem? Personal leadership is saying, okay, what's my part of this? What can I take ownership of? And what choices can I make? And then at some point you might say, okay, I've gone as far with it as I can, but now it's time to reach out and get help from, an agency or a mentor or something like that. So personal leadership is taking ownership of what you have the choice to do, what you have control over. I can control how I react. So I feel like as human beings, we are driven a lot by our amygdala, and we're put in situations that alerts are, puts us on alert. Fight, flight, or freeze is our response. And I think our greatest challenge as human beings is to learn how to get past that and use this part of our brains, the prefrontal cortex. But it's a really challenging thing to do because we're so hardwired to go into that reactive space. So I think learning to think critically and get to the prefrontal cortex is a huge part or component of personal leadership.
Absolutely. And that's that awareness, isn't it, of the messages.
I hope you heard all of that.
I did. You're frozen again. You're frozen again, but it's okay. We did catch it all again there, Pallas. And so you've just been talking about taking ownership, and so much of that is about being aware of the thoughts that are going through our head. And I know that so many people are like, but I can't do that, but I can't do that, but I can't do that, you know. And so it's that awareness of, well, maybe I can. I could do this. I can do this. And looking for the things that we can do rather than the things that we can't do.
It's that little voice that we just dismiss, because it's, and I've said this in my TEDx talk, this loud, obnoxious voice of fear going, what makes you think you can? You know, of course, and that overwhelms the little voice of, maybe. And that's the most powerful voice actually that we have. We just have to learn how to tune into it.
And that reminds me of an absolutely amazing poem by Marianne Williamson, and it's called Our Greatest Fear. And if you haven't seen it, it's absolutely and utterly wonderful. So I might
I'm sure that I have. I'm terrible at remembering poems, though, I have to say. But yes, I will definitely look it up.
Yeah, it talks about our greatest fear being that we're powerful beyond measure.
That's right.
Yes,
it does ring a bell.
Yeah, it's just an amazing poem. So anyway, thank you so much, Pallas, for sharing your thoughts today around the POP process. You're living with passion, living with purpose, and you're a living example of that. And it's been really wonderful to share that with people that are listening here. I really hope that many of them will take inspiration from what you've talked about and look for their own passion, look for their own purpose in life, and know that they too can do it. They too can find their path, because when they do, there's so much more fulfillment, there's so much more happiness, there's so much more energy that we can release to help other people in the world. So,
and there's so much more. You're very welcome. And there's so much more resilience. I was going to say, you know, we're going into 2021 and it's going to be quite a year. It won't be perfect. It'll be better than 2020, but resilience is the key. And so thank you, Cathy, for the opportunity to share what little I have to offer, but thank you for being the conduit, because you have brought us all together. So much appreciation.
Thank you. Thanks very, very much, Pallas.